Deborah, I know that you have a lot to say, and and you have a terrific story. So I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, well, let me just BJ. And as BJ said, I'm with the School of Communication and Culture, and I teach several courses for them. But the one I'm going to talk to you, and in every single one, I have a team-based project. But the one we're going to discuss today is the one that's for PCOM 540, which is a Communication, Culture, and Media course. And essentially, this one, students are exposed to dominant strands informing critical media and cultural studies, approaches to communication. So as part of that agenda, they're tasked with a team project that considers the ways in which entertainment media can be used to illustrate and discuss communication concepts.
Deborah,
And
could you
yes,
stop for just a second? I may have pressed the
sure.
wrong button. I don't think so, because you're on the other screen. But hang on just a minute.
Okay.
Deborah, you're on.
Okay. Uh, Again, the purpose of this course is to, the purpose of this particular project is to see if students, how they can consider the ways in which entertainment media can actually be used to illustrate and discuss complex communication concepts, philosophical positions, and theories, and present them and be illustrative of them in an easy and digestible manner. So, the team project has four major components, and they're weighted here. There's an audio-visual presentation, which is distributed online, a formal written summary of the same content. They are asked to provide feedback to each other's teams, constructive feedback for the development of the final written summary, which is considered the culminating project. And then, of course, or not of course necessarily, but a team participation survey. And this is where students get an ability to voice their satisfaction or dissatisfaction with their teammates and their own performance on the team. So this is an area of self-reflection. Why I designed this project was because I wanted something that would expose students to the kinds of interactions they would probably or likely encounter and need to prepare for and navigate in professional settings when they are tasked with working with others on a project. Some of those concerns would be like anticipating the unexpected, such as the loss of a team member or when one disappears or fails to communicate. Keeping the project on track when a team member is unable to deliver a work product by scheduled due date, or if there's some other difficulty that arises. Resolving personality conflicts and disagreements about a project direction, which can happen with misunderstandings about what exactly you're tasked to do. Sharing the workload with non-contributing or dominating team members, which will happen frequently. Effectively communicating in asynchronous settings, which is happening more and more in professional environments. Understanding the different modes and expectations, and this is really important, that accompany written, live, and mediated presentation modes. And for this, what I'm speaking of, I'm sure we've all had this experience where you go to a conference and somebody's reading their paper aloud, and essentially the audience just wants to stab their eyes out. This is the kind of thing that we're trying to communicate. That different communication modes require have different expectations. What else? Technical challenges that will inevitably arise, giving and receiving feedback, productive feedback, not only learning how to receive it, graciously, but learning how to give it so that that you're actually giving something of meaning to a colleague. And then, of course, exposure to contemporary professional communication and collaboration tools that are now available, as well as having accountability to a project and to the members of your team. All of those were based on concerns that I have, having had my own experience on team-based projects in not only in scholarly environments, but in the entertainment industry, where, we had to develop very clear guidelines for working together to effectively create something on time and on budget. So one of the primary ways of making this all to come together successfully was starting out and asking the students to create a team organization report. So this is a charter in which they collectively agree right off the bat, the first week of the course, really, as soon as they get into a team, to their timelines. They kind of assess their own personal ability to be available for certain tasks. They get to know each other a little bit. They identify the skills they bring to the table, and therefore some of the roles will naturally unfold from that, and responsibilities that each team member will have and has agreed to take on. The other thing that comes in this team organization report, which is not, they can create it any way they would like. This report is ungraded, but it has to have these elements to it. So an agreement to timelines, roles, responsibilities of each member, but also contingency plans for the unexpected. So if suddenly your technical director drops out, what is plan B? So who makes these decisions? Well, the only two roles they're required to create for this team project is a project manager and a team communications director. These are both non-hierarchical roles. But basically the project manager is a coordinator for the group, and also is tasked with the idea of coming up with an alternative plan for any number of any concerns that might develop throughout the course of creating these two projects, the presentation and the written summary. The team communication director, their entire role is to funnel communication to me from the team, concerns, questions, and to funnel back my responses to and disseminate that to the team members, so that you have a very clear line of communication, and mitigate some of the misunderstandings that might occur as a result of multiple people getting multiple conversations and information from a source. In addition to that, I asked them to identify and fill any other roles that they think, based on their project, will be productive for them to complete the assignment. And because these assignments are open-ended in terms of what kind of media they want to use, they get to decide what those roles will be. Some of the more common ones are an editor, technology director, narrator, etc. The editor, you'll have two kinds of editors, obviously. You have the editor for the written summary, and you have the editor for the script for the presentation. And you also sometimes students will split it up into they'll also have an APA editor. So, all right. Another, I think, important component to getting everyone on the same page is instructor related, and this is the way that you organize Moodle. I'm just kind of an organizational freak anyway when it comes to the Moodle environment, because it can be very overwhelming. But in this folder, I am extremely specific about the information that they need for completing this assignment. And I reiterate, they have a project schedule because each team has their own schedule that's different one to another, because these presentations happen over the course of 6 weeks. They get to understand how the team presentations will be assessed. There's something that I put in there called the Master's Technological Toolbox, which I'll go into later. And then the team wikis, team forums, and anything else related to the team project. Here's an example of how I assess the project. I give them very clear guidelines for the criteria. This is one of the teams, Imagine Communities. And so you see the point knockouts for each one of these, for fulfilling each one of these parts of the task. It's very clear. Some of you might not be as comfortable having that rigid an outline, but I have found from my students that they really appreciate having a very specific set of guidelines and knowing where to put their energy if what is weighing more than something else. So here's an example of the guidelines and how they're broken out in terms of assessing a team project. I'm going to make this PowerPoint available to you guys because I think we're losing a lot of time here with the technological problems. So the other thing is, even though there is a schedule, as I said, because this project has varying deadlines depending on which team you're in, I reiterate very clearly to the team, okay, these are the important areas, these are the important dates that you have to meet. And so, as you can see, they are required to meet with me for team progress, etc. When they have to post and when they have to complete their surveys. Okay. I'm going to go back to the full screen, see if that helps us. Okay. The selecting a presentation format is up to the team based on the skills that they bring to each member brings to that team. And so I've seen, and I put no parameters on it except that it has to be audiovisual, and which is really great because we get exposed to lots of new technologies as they get developed. And sometimes the students, I learn a lot from the students because they'll bring in new technologies, new applications, new delivery or display platforms that are brought in. It's great. And then they share them with the class. But here's some of the standard ones that we've seen that have been around for a while. You have Vimeo for display, Prezi presentations, PowerPoint, of course, iMovies, Final Cut Pro movies, WordPress, interactive blogs, and Dreamweaver websites. So these are some of the things that interactive websites that people have done. And then I have the glossary. There's a glossary tool in Moodle which allows you to have kind of an organic. People can contribute organically to this glossary, and I use the glossary tool to create a master's technological toolbox. And so here's a screenshot from one where a student will say, I've used Adobe After Effects and this is my experience with it. And, other students will do that as well, where they say, hey, check out Rocket Share. It's a great display platform, easy to use, So they just give a little bit of, it's collecting the pool of the collective, it's pulling together the collective intelligence of the cohort, not just the teams. Using the tools that are prominent in contemporary workplaces, they get exposure to video web conferencing platforms through, for example, Blackboard, where I hold all my open houses, my Q&A sessions, my online lectures, all team and individual advisement. It gets them used to, at least jumping into the fray and getting behind the driver's seat for the first time in a web, for many of them, first time in a web conferencing circumstance. In addition, I provide the teams with their own Collaborate rooms so that they can record their meetings for asynchronous playback for team members who can't attend because sometimes they're in different, time zones. And but they want to know what the exchanges were that happened within the team and the deliberations that occurred. So Blackboard is perfect for that. In addition, they have their own dedicated team forums and dedicated team wikis. And I won't go into what the wikis are. I'm assuming most of you know that they're organic and that they can work on editing a document together in those. They're also required to give and receive feedback. And so each team is charged with giving feedback to 2 other teams on their presentation. And the purpose of the feedback is twofold. One is to practice in giving productive feedback. The other is to solicit feedback and recognize that your presentation 9 times out of 10 is a work in progress for a final culminating project. In this case, the culminating project is the written summary of the material. And here's an example of some productive feedback. It's the student says, I thought you provided a good definition of participatory culture. However, I wanted more clarification on the media's ability to foster democratic conditions. So here the student is giving the team an idea of what they could expand upon in their summary. Accountability. The way this is kind of fostered through this project is when they first come into the course, within the first 2 days, they are to select a team based on their own personal schedules and their own personal preferences. This allows them to understand that they're making that decision about when they're saying they will be available, or they're allowing themselves to be available, and not going to use the excuse that they had no choice in terms of when team presentations were supposed to be delivered that they're charged with. The other aspect is a team evaluation survey, which is anonymous to the other teammates, but they rate on a Likert scale each other's performance and their own based on these 8 points, which I will not go over here because of time, but again, this PowerPoint will be made available for you. And there were very few challenges that I really find with this project. Students really find it, they love it. They absolutely love this project, putting together and learning technology. So that part's really good. The only issues I think that you will initially run into is this, what I call Luddism or new media phobia. We have a lot of older students at Royal Roads, and I think for some of them, they're resistant to, they're concerned about learning a new technology or not being facile at it right off the bat. And so, kind of encouraging them that just like when you drive a car, the first time you drive a car, you're not necessarily, going to be terrific. You might run over a couple of curbs. This is the whole point, is that this is the place where you get to play with these technologies and get better at them and learn from each other. The other thing is avoiding time suckers, and I think this is for faculty and student alike. I try to get the students to not work on Facebook and not work on through email, but to actually work in the Moodle environment for many reasons. Primarily, though, to keep their focus on the task at hand. It's very easy when you're on Facebook to be distracted, or when you're working on an email to, when other emails come in, you get distracted. So I try to get them to do all their work. I don't force them to, but I try to encourage them to do all their work within the Moodle environment. And finally, the third challenge that arises is around feedback. And this is something I notice more with my Canadian students than with my US students. So I'm thinking it might be a cultural thing, but in the US, we are more perhaps used to critiquing one another, sometimes brutally. At least here in Los Angeles, we are. And among my Canadian students, I notice there's a very, very deep concern and empathy for, like, oh, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, or make anybody feel bad about the project. And communicating that there is a way to deliver feedback that is not necessarily harsh or negative, but is actually helping your colleagues, because your colleagues need that feedback to know how to improve for their final project. So you're helping them, you're not harming them. So, breaking through that resistance and encouraging them by saying that they must provide something substantive that the other team can use. Okay, so with that, how much time do we have, BJ?
Time to show these clips.
Yeah, how much time do we have left?
Oh, I don't know. We've got 2 more speakers here.
Okay, so let's do let's do the first 2, and if we have time, we'll do the third. These are 3 different presentations. The first one is, I had and what I'm showing you here is the different kinds of presentations that were developed based on the skill sets that the students brought to the team. This first team presentation had a team of
Deborah,
anchors.
hang on a second. You'll need to say again what you're showing. We didn't hear you in the room.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Say it again.
Okay. What I'm going to be showing you are 3 different presentations that are based on the team's. One is film, one is website, one is a PowerPoint export to film video. The purpose of these is to show you the variety of skills that students bring to the classroom that can, no matter where they are in their terms of their technological capabilities, what they bring and how that informs the project. This first project is this particular team. We had 3 anchors, television news anchors on this team. And so they brought that to bear by using their presentation skills, their oratory skills, as well as their knowledge of editing to do a filmed presentation. Go ahead and show it, that short clip.
Imagine our world without light bulbs. We couldn't work, play, or even move around very easily in the darkness. Switch on the light and new landscapes of experience open up. Hello and welcome to Group 6's presentation of Is the Medium the Message? To Marshall McLuhan, electric light is an information medium, and he used this analogy to help explain one of history's most striking and foundational ideas concerning communication and human interaction.
Message of television is what it does to us, the users.
Are you saying that the medium is more important than the message it carries?
No. The medium is not more important than the message. It's obvious. The medium is the message.
McLuhan was referring to all media, TV, books, newspapers, radio, and movies. He believed that the content of a particular medium tends to blind us to the transforming effect the medium has on us.
Whether it's an electric light or radio or telephone.
But the notion of a by deviance theory.
Antonio
Zeni
into the voice of an entire opposition movement. Nida, which means the calling, is now on millions of flips across the globe, on the internet in specially designed avatars. A young life cut down in its prime. One woman's gripping story speaking volumes.
We benefit from thinking critically by exploring the complex media influence, the impact it has on us individually, and how it forms our cultures and society. Ideological analysis sheds some light on how ideology can be embedded in cultural texts, especially in the hands of corporate conglomerates that have much to gain and much to lose. For example, John Fisk's analysis of a biased newscast shows how journalists can use language and social positioning to cast a more favorable light on one character in a story over another.
Alberta's health minister says the recent cuts to the health care budget are necessary, well-timed, and will ultimately result in a better health care system for all Albertans. He calls it short-term pain for long-term gain, and he promises that no one will be hurt since the plan is to cut in places that don't affect patient care.
Alberta's healthcare unions say proposed cuts to healthcare funding will cause patients pain and suffering, and that they're aimed at the weakest and most vulnerable in our society. The nurses union adds there is no fat to trim, and any cuts to healthcare funding will directly affect patient care.
Comparing these two accounts of cuts to Alberta healthcare returns us to a question posed at the beginning of this video. Do communication technologies encode a specific world view on the information they provide? We say yes. In both accounts, we see powerful agents using technology to influence the audience. But people will make up their own minds about what to believe. Herein lies a limitation of ideological analysis, its inability to fully explain the bottom-up behaviors seen in popular culture. Contemporary scholarship sees audiences as diverse and open to competing interpretations.
Okay, that clip is finished. Yes.
Okay, that was not the clip to show, but can we make sure with the next clip that we get to the right clip on this? So, and it's only, these are only 1-minute clips, just so you guys know. Okay, so this next presentation, this is a website. We had a web, the team really wanted to play with an interactive website. And this was for a project called Adventures in Essentialism. And if you can drag the cursor on the
we're at 127.
Window, yeah, that's great. And just run it till 3. Thank you.
Into a certain subject position or type which existed before them. People determine who you are and what you might be like based on what they can gather from your physical appearance and other states of being, such as class or sexual orientation. In order to demonstrate the concept of essentialism, let's introduce our team. This is Vivian. Now, what can we deduce from Vivian's photo? Well, Vivian is of Chinese heritage, and she is a young woman. So, what assumptions do we make? That she only cooks, eats, and enjoys Chinese food? That she has small feet? How about this? A shopping center in China designed a special parking lot for women like Vivian with stalls 3 feet wider than normal that are colored pink and purple to, quote, cater to women's strong sense of color and a different sense of distance. And here we have Samantha. What comes to mind from Samantha's photo? She is also a young woman, but she's Caucasian. Does that mean that she can't like rhythm and blues music or dance to hip-hop? She lives in Ottawa, so she must be a secretary or administrative assistant to some government official. Perhaps she is more desirable because of her blonde hair and blue eyes.
Okay, Deborah, we're at 3.
Yeah, I think this was the, was this on, well, anyway, again, I think we've got the wrong clips here pulled up. Okay, what I want to point out about this interactive website, it has some pluses and minuses, but the ability is that people are encouraged to still direct the interactivity, the level of interactivity that the user will be able to work through by organizing the pages very systematically and linearly. I think I'm going to skip the third one because we seem to be having some issues here, and I want to make sure that everybody else has time. But hopefully, this gives you some idea of the kind of projects that can be done in terms of AV for these projects. So thank you very much for your time and allowing me to share this.
Thank you, Deborah. Sure. Deborah, we are inviting people to post questions on the Etherpad for you. We're going to let you off the hook because she was up very late last night. I got this PowerPoint presentation from her at something like 3:50 in the morning. And she's actually on her way soon to Res here next week, right, Deb?
Yeah, I'll be there Monday. Okay,
so maybe we can snag you on campus for questions as well. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Sure. Well, if you want, I can stick around for about. I'd like to see the other presentations too. So.
Okay. In order to do that, you're going to have to switch to live stream, which is Tammy. I think can end up sending you a link for that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So, bye.
Bye.